So, Nick, AI is making CEOs delusional. Did you hear this story with Gary Tan and G-Stack? Have you heard about this one
No,
yet?
tell me.
Okay, so basically, Gary Tan had what we call a God mode moment. So he is Y Combinator's CEO. Everyone knows Y Combinator. He open sourced something called G-Stack, which is a set of Claude code prompts that basically simulate an entire engineering team. A CTO called it God mode. It got 20,000 GitHub stars. Critics pointed out that it's literally just a list of text prompts with fancy names. Tan himself admitted to sleeping for 4 hours a night in a state he called cyberpsychosis. This is a CEO delusion of one story. A text file gets treated like a breakthrough because the right person shared it. And we're going to pull it up next. We don't pull any punches on the Stack podcast. And we've got a lot to cover today, bro. But tell me, Nick, what's your thought on the cyberpsychosis-induced tech stack known as G-Stack that's taking the GitHub by storm right now?
Well, I do find it funny that you said that they were just a bunch of text files, because isn't everything just a bunch of text files if you go too deep?
Yeah. They're just like oil is a bunch of dead dinosaurs. Yeah, it's all like, what's
That's a fair rebuttal. I'm seeing a lot of this recently. I feel like it's just because the sycophantic nature of the yes man, Opus 4.6 or ChatGPT. We saw this a lot with GPT-4o, but it's just like, am I being crazy here? And it's like, no, Nick, you're special. People just don't understand it yet. They will soon. And then it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's a sycophancy, right? It's like, because we caught a video on this and they're making the point that AI is making everybody feel like a genius. And so we're having these delusions of grandeur. We're actually going to pull up G-Stack and see what it's about. So people are saying it's, the classic one I keep seeing everywhere is where people are basically saying stuff like, this is my head of marketing. This is my head of engineering. This is my head of design. And I see these everywhere, Nick. But I mean, everyone's got a version of that in some shape or form. But I think the point that a lot of people are missing, as I just sign into this too, I can share my screen, is that AI doesn't necessarily follow conventional organizational structures like we do, right? In a traditional large company, you might have a CEO. You might then have a marketing team, a finance team. But who's to say that that's actually the optimum system for an AI to do this? So this is the infamous G-Stack.
Fascinating. The thing about the whole, this is my head of marketing, this is my head of tech, because I saw this with a Paperclip, which just came out a few days ago as well, is, as you mentioned, we're applying human organizational hierarchies to agents when agents are fundamentally differently skill allocated than people are. An agent could parallelize, spawn 20 sub-agents, have tons of research done across a whole stack, and then return in the same amount of time that it would take my head of marketing to basically finish finagling with the freaking coffee machine, right?
Absolutely.
So it just doesn't really make any sense. And I understand why people want to do it, because it's sort of within their established workflow and their established hierarchy. But really all this is, as you were saying, this is a bunch of different files, right? All this is just a new file organization structure, whether it's G-Stack, whether it's Paperclip, whether it's just one of these things. Whether you organize it as a bunch of sub-agents that each have their own personalities and then desires and then interests, or a bunch of skills inside of the Claude skills folder where you have SOPs and stuff like that, it's the same thing, right? It doesn't actually make that big of a difference. So I haven't actually looked too deeply into G-Stack itself, but I'm confident it's just one of these sorts of situations.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's happening a lot. And so one of the idea, this kind of connects to this idea of what we're describing as the busy idiot era of AI. So basically, what we find from data is that 80% of companies report zero productivity gains from AI. That's 80%. Zero. Goose egg. For those of you who are listening, I'm holding up my hands in a zero shape to emphasize the zeroness of the situation. So AI usage went up 13% in 2025, but confidence in its utility is dropping. Roughly 40% of the time that's been allegedly saved by AI gets eaten up by reviewing, correcting, and verifying AI output. So developers complete about 20% more tasks, but PR review time jumps 91%. This, I think, is fascinating because code creation is no longer the bottleneck, it's code review. And I recently showed something about how you can get essentially the Claude Code frameworks with a lower grade model, because rate limitation is something that we see all the time. But it's really important to bear in mind that, something like Claude Code Max and Claude on, we're not affiliated or sponsored necessarily by Claude. And we don't gain anything if you sign up for it. But the productivity benefits you get from investing in high quality tokens is worth its weight in goal because remember, with free, you're basically paying with your time and then you've got to review and double check everything. So it's a complete false economy. Nick, what are your thoughts on the busy idiot era that we're entering into now? People thinking they're being super productive. In reality, we're spinning in circles.
So you and I, people that are either solo or run really small teams, we get a massive productivity advantage with Claude Code because, to be honest, if it misses 10% of the time, it's not that big of a deal. A big enterprise that has sunk costs, pre-existing assets that are worth billions of dollars, and so on and so forth, they can't afford not to like diligently review every line of code that one of these things puts out. So for me, I mean, I'm probably 3 to 5x productive if you're counting total deliverable output. But a company like that is probably just like on net approximately the same, even now that they're spending all this money in tokens and so on and so forth, because they can't just, spray and pray. They can't just build the plane while they're flying it, as I know you like to say. They actually have to, spend a bunch of time like anticipating the needs of the market, doing tons of market research, building something that they think is going to land. During the building, do tons of reviews. Then after the building, do tons of like post hoc retrospectives and so on. And so I don't know if you saw, but Anthropic is now, or for about a whole year, was running their entire marketing department with one dude. And so that's an example of like a big company that is leveraging this sort of like astronomical, crazy technology in order to do much better and much faster work. I think the future of like bigger companies is basically giving one person total autonomy or total responsibility over like some small department, probably not as big as, my entire marketing stack, but maybe something really small, like, I don't know, some component of like the paid ad stack, and saying you actually own 100% of this thing. Okay. And you're capable of doing 100% of whatever the heck you want. So treat this like a mini business, and then use AI to leverage your ability to output really fast. By doing so, obviously there'll be some downsides, but you're not like risking the entire asset of the entire company, on like the 10% of situations in which AI is hallucinating or writing some shitty code.
That's very well said, actually, because the expression that comes to my mind here is that a horse designed by committee is a donkey. And the more people you bring into any decision-making process, and you'll know, like any big company that anyone's worked at, the bureaucracy is like the number one pain point. Getting anything done just gets a million X in time. So their ability to move speed, I think speed is what kills ultimately.